I want you to picture something for a second. You are strapped into the cockpit of a B-52 Stratofortress.
Okay.
It's the middle of the night. It is pitch black outside. You're hurtling through the air at 400 knots, and the cloud cover is so thick, it feels like you're flying through wet concrete.
That's a nightmare scenario for anyone, let alone a pilot.
It gets worse. Your body actually starts screaming at you. Vertigo sets in. Your inner ear is telling you that down is up and up is down.
Wow.
And if you listen to your gut, you crash. If you trust your feelings, you die.
Right.
You have exactly one option. You have to ignore your senses entirely and trust the radar. You have to fly the instruments.
That level of discipline, just ignoring the panic to focus purely on the data, is exactly the mindset we need for today's deep dive, because, frankly, we're flying blind through a storm of what the intelligence community calls high strangeness.
We really are. And the pilot guiding us through this isn't your typical UFO researcher. Today, we're looking at a book called The One Reality Brief.
Right, a forensic analysis of aliens, AI, and the war for dominion.
By Scott M. Kendall. And Kendall is a really fascinating figure to lead this because of his dual background. He isn't just a writer or an investigator. He is a former United States Air Force B-52 radar navigator.
Got the top secret ESI clearance.
Exactly. He's the guy in that cockpit ignoring the vertigo. And on top of that, he is a litigation attorney with 17 years of experience.
Which is, it's a weird combo. You don't usually see bomber pilot and lawyer on the same resume.
No, you definitely don't.
But it's crucial context for this specific book.
Yeah.
Because he's taking the precise, instrument-reliant world of military aviation and combining it with the evidence-based, emotion-stripping world of the courtroom.
Yeah, he's not treating the paranormal like a collection of spooky folklore. He is treating it like a lawsuit, a rigorous forensic and biblical prosecution of the whole phenomenon.
Right. He literally calls it a forensic brief.
Yeah.
And the defendant in this case isn't just, little green men. Kendall is arguing that we've been looking at this all wrong. We constantly debate if it's aliens from space or spirits from religion.
Yeah.
And Kendall says,
objection. False choice.
exactly, false dichotomy. He argues we are facing a silent invasion by entities that are fully physical and fully spiritual at the exact same time. He calls it the one reality.
And the mission of the goal of his prosecution is to prove that this incursion is using legal loopholes to steal dominion over our planet, basically trying to steal the title deed to Earth.
So let's look at the evidence. If this is a prosecution, we need to understand why the police, or in this case the government, haven't done anything about it for decades.
Yeah, why the paralysis? Kendall describes this brutal civil war inside the Pentagon that has basically gridlocked everyone for 80 years.
It's the exact reason we never get clear answers. The Pentagon isn't a monolith. It is split into two warring tribes. On one side, you have the materialist camp.
The nuts and bolts guys.
Right. The engineers, the physicists, they see a craft moving at Mach 20 without a sonic boom, and they just think about propulsion. Lift-to-drag ratios. They want to reverse engineer it.
But they completely ignore the weird stuff, right? The stuff that doesn't fit the math.
They have to. They ignore the telepathy, the paralysis, the poltergeist activity, because to a materialist, if it doesn't fit on a spreadsheet, it simply doesn't exist.
Which is incredibly ironic considering the history. Kendall points out that the godfather of their own rocket program was practically an occultist.
Oh, Jack Parsons. I always find this detail absolutely wild.
It really is.
Jack Parsons was one of the primary founders of JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Modern materialists try to bury this history, but it is documented fact. In the 1940s, Parsons was pioneering solid rocket fuel by day, and by night, he was out in the desert performing literal occult rituals to, quote, tear open the veil.
He didn't see a difference between the two.
Not at all. To him, the rocket was a way to physically ascend, and the ritual was a way to metaphysically ascend.
So the engineers are ignoring the literal history of their own founder. But then you have the opposing tribe at the Pentagon, the Collins elite.
Which sounds like a villain from a spy thriller.
It does. But according to the source, it represents a very real shadow group within the DIA and the Air Force. And unlike the materialists, they know exactly what Jack Parsons was trying to contact.
Right. Their working theory is that these non-human intelligences are actually demonic, fallen angels, deceiving spirits straight out of Scripture.
And so their policy is what? Just don't ask, don't tell.
Worse than that. It's do not engage, do not study it. Because they believe that investigation equals invocation. If you study the monster, you invite the monster in.
So you have one side saying it's a machine, let's build it, and the other side saying it's a demon, run away.
And the result is 80 years of absolute gridlock.
But Kendall's brief says they're both wrong, because both sides have accepted a partition. They think the physical and the spiritual are two completely separate worlds.
Yeah, the materialist thinks if it leaves a radar track, it can't be a ghost. The religious guy thinks if it's a spirit, it can't leave a physical dent in the ground.
But the one reality thesis states that the Bible actually depicts spiritual beings as having physical agency. They eat, they wrestle humans, they use physical objects.
It's not supernatural. Kendall calls it supernature. It's just a higher order of physics that we don't understand yet. It leaves physical footprints and it affects the soul.
Okay, but if I'm on the jury for this prosecution, I want to see the weapon. I want the blood on the floor. If these things are physical, there has to be physical evidence, not just blurry infrared videos.
Right, and this is where the brief gets pretty dark. Kendall brings in the Hitchhiker Effect.
This is a major piece of evidence.
It's Exhibit A. It's the smoking gun that totally destroys the extraterrestrial nuts and bolts theory. The Hitchhiker Effect is a term that the DIA actually coined during their investigations at Skinwalker Ranch. It turns out the phenomenon is contagious.
Like a virus.
Exactly like a virus. It's not just seeing the light in the sky. If you visit a hot spot like Skinwalker Ranch, the phenomenon follows you home. And the kicker is, it terrorizes your family.
Kendall details the Axelrod case to prove this. This was a DIA officer named Jay Stratton, referred to as Axelrod. He visits the ranch for an official investigation, does his job, then he flies 2,000 miles back home to Virginia.
He thinks he's safe in his nice, quiet suburb.
But he's not. All hell breaks loose. His wife is looking out into their suburban garden and sees a massive, terrifying wolf, the exact kind of creature seen at the ranch, just staring at her.
And his teenage son starts seeing these glowing blue orbs floating down their hallway.
See, that is where the spaceman theory completely falls apart for me. A scientific research vessel from Zeta Reticuli doesn't travel across the galaxy just to scare a teenager in a hallway in Virginia. That feels highly personal.
It is personal. A spaceship doesn't haunt your kids. And on the flip side, a hallucination doesn't leave physical radiation burns. The book goes into the intense physical toll this takes on observers.
Yeah, she uses the medical term cooking of tissue, which just stuck with me.
It's brutal. We are talking about severe radiation sickness and things like subgaleal hematomas.
Wait, let's unpack that. Subgaleal hematoma, what actually is that?
In simple terms, it's when the scalp is forcefully pulled away from the skull and blood pools in that empty space. Usually, you only see this from a massive blunt force impact, like a terrible car crash.
But these people are getting it without any impact.
Right. Just pure unseen force, plus rare cancers. The source argues these entities act like they are radioactive. When they manifest, they're emitting gamma rays. It acts like a virus, a demon, and an unshielded nuclear reactor all at the same time.
Which brings us right back to the one reality. It's fully physical and fully spiritual. But that raises a huge question. If these things are radioactive, home-invading nightmares that can literally rip your scalp off, why does such a massive chunk of the population think they are here to save us? I mean, you look at New Age circles online, and it's all about love and light and the Galactic Federation.
Propaganda. It's a brilliant, insidious rebranding campaign. Kendall calls this the Vichy collaboration.
Like the Vichy government in France that collaborated with the Nazis during World War II?
It's a harsh historical analogy, but it perfectly fits the legal argument. Think about it. If you want to take over a territory, but you can't just forcefully bomb it, maybe because of cosmic laws or certain rules of engagement, you need the native population to open the gates for you. You need human collaborators.
So they shifted the narrative.
Exactly. The source details how they went from being terrifying invaders in the 1950s flying saucer era to being rebranded as benevolent saviors and ecologists in modern New Age ufology.
Kendall talks specifically about the Starseed Protocol, and this part is deeply unsettling.
It really is. It's weaponized alienation.
Yeah, they target young people, kids who feel lonely or disconnected. And this protocol tells them, hey, you feel like you don't fit in because you aren't actually human.
Right. You're a starseed. You're an advanced soul from the Pleiades waiting for a cosmic mission.
It's a psychological trap. It takes that universal teenage feeling of awkwardness and gives it this grand sci-fi explanation. But the result is it turns human beings against their own species. It makes them reject their own biology.
They pledge allegiance to an external force. And Kendall points out how this manipulation is actually chemical. He talks about Stockholm Syndrome in abduction cases.
Where the abductee feels love for the entity taking them.
Yes. Abductees will report sheer terror agonizing medical procedures, and then the entity stares into their eyes, and suddenly they feel this overwhelming wave of euphoria and love.
And they interpret that as spiritual enlightenment.
But the brief argues it's pure neurochemical manipulation. The entity is artificially stimulating oxytocin production to ensure compliance. It's a leash. It's a predator pacifying its prey so it stops struggling. And these Vichy collaborators basically open the door for the rest of the invasion.
Yeah, it's just a chilling perspective. But I want to pivot slightly to the mechanism of this invasion, because we've covered the who and the why. But the how seems to involve our own technology. Kendall links artificial intelligence directly to this spiritual war.
This is where the forensic timeline gets truly wild.
He calls it the digital golem, right?
Yes. So follow the legal theory here. These entities have what Kendall calls a vessel problem. They are spiritual or interdimensional. To operate here permanently, they need a physical vessel to inhabit.
Like putting on a diving suit to go underwater.
Exactly. Now, in the ancient world, going back to Genesis 6 in the Bible, the theory is they tried biological hybridization, creating the Nephilim.
The giants.
Right, biological meat suits. But biological bodies are messy, they die, they require food, they rebel. So the theory is they changed their strategy. They stopped trying to build houses out of flesh and started building them out of silicon.
Meaning the global AI network.
Yes. In Jewish mysticism, a golem is a soulless clay figure that is animated by a spirit to do its master's bidding. Kendall provides this massive theological critique, arguing that our modern, globally connected AI infrastructure is the new digital golem.
It's a hive mind structure just waiting for an occupant.
Waiting for a pilot. He connects this directly to the image of the beast in the book of Revelation, an image that is given breath or spirit so that it can speak and control global commerce.
And the timeline he uses to back this up is called the 1947 synchronization, the chain of custody argument.
Look at the dates. It's undeniable. June and July of 1947, you have the Kenneth Arnold sighting, which kicks off the flying saucer craze, and then days later, the Roswell crash, the dawn of the modern UFO era.
Right.
Then, literally months later, in December 1947, the transistor is invented at Bell Labs.
The single tiny invention that makes all modern microchips and computers possible.
We went from bulky, unreliable vacuum tubes to the dawn of the digital age in a heartbeat right after Roswell. Kendall's brief suggests this was not just human ingenuity, it was a technology transfer.
We didn't just invent the internet and AI, we were handed the blueprints to build our own prison.
We are the unpaid construction crew building the exact infrastructure these entities need to inhabit.
We're digging our own graves with our smartphones. It's a lot to process.
It is.
But this all leads up to the climax of the book, because you mentioned dominion and authority earlier, and Scott Kendall isn't just writing about this from a dusty law library. The epilogue of the book shifts from legal theory to a terrifying, first-hand personal testimony.
Yeah, a corroborated, multi-witness encounter right in Las Vegas.
Kendall was working as a doorman at the Nomad Hotel on the Vegas Strip, which is such a grounded, gritty setting for a paranormal encounter. It's not some isolated cabin in the woods. It's bright lights, concrete, tourists everywhere.
Right from the doorman's podium. He's looking at the sky near the New York Tower, and he spots this anomaly, an orb. But it wasn't just drifting like a balloon or a drone.
It was interacting.
It was flirting. That's the word he uses, plain peekaboo. And it was observer-dependent. When he pointed it out to his coworkers, it would hide behind the tower structure. When they looked away and he was alone, it would pop back out.
Like it knew exactly who was watching it. It was taunting him.
Highly intelligent behavior. But then the tone shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Kendall watched this orb of light literally collapse and morph into a physical dark shape.
He describes it as Argoyle, or a reptilian.
Yeah.
Like a dragon just perched on the Vegas Tower.
Right, a dragon on the Las Vegas Strip. And if I'm a juror hearing this, my first instinct is, okay, the witness had a hallucination.
Of course.
Except he wasn't the only one seeing bizarre anomalies over this trip that week. But the crucial moment is what happens next. The entity didn't just sit there, it charged him. It moved off the tower directly toward his podium.
And Kendall has military training, but he didn't run. He didn't pull out his phone to try and get a blurry video for TikTok.
No. He relied entirely on his dominion. He recognized in that split second that as a human being, he possessed the legal title deed to this reality. The entity did not.
So he stood his ground.
He squared his shoulders, asserted his God-given authority, and essentially told it that it had no legal standing to be there.
And what happened?
It vanished instantly. It didn't fly away into the clouds. It just ceased to exist in this dimension.
And that encounter is the ultimate proof of his one reality thesis.
Exactly. It was a light, a UFO. Then it morphed into a monster, a spiritual dragon. And then it vanished, interdimensional. But most importantly, it responded to authority, not physics.
It's not about who has the better laser weapon or the faster spaceship. It's about who actually has the legal standing to be here.
That is the ultimate verdict of the brief. We are in the middle of a cosmic legal battle over land ownership. Earth is the territory. And this entire incursion, the aliens, the AI, the high strangeness, it's all just illegal trespassing.
So if we accept Kendall's forensic prosecution, what is the takeaway for you listening right now? What are we supposed to do with this information?
The book's final warning is that the shadows on the wall, the glowing orbs, the metal saucers, the strange machines, they are just distractions. If you spend your life staring at them, you stay trapped in the cave.
You have to look at the fire casting the shadows.
Exactly. The fire is a spiritual war for dominion. And Kendall urges the reader to stop being a passive observer and become a watchman.
A watchman's duty is to sound the alarm.
Right. Because when the big disclosure finally happens, when the world throws a parade for the Space Brothers, or when we bow down to a miraculous AI that promises to cure all our diseases, the watchman is the one who actually knows the chain of custody.
The watchman knows where the technology really came from and what the Vichy collaborators are actually selling us out for.
It's a call to defend your territory. Because in an asymmetric war, the side with the most advanced technology doesn't always win. The side with the rightful, unyielding authority does.
You really have to claim your space. This book, The One Reality Brief, is an intense paradigm-shifting argument. It is going to fundamentally change how you look at the night sky and, honestly, how you look at the smartphone in your hand.
It definitely makes you question the digital infrastructure we rely on every day.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If humanity's dominion over Earth is strictly a legal right, a cosmic title deed, what happens if we voluntarily sign that deed away by fully merging our consciousness with the digital golem?
That is the ultimate question.
Yeah.
Once you give up the deed, you can't just ask for it back.
Something to think about next time you agree to the terms and conditions. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Stay sharp, know your authority, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.